Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. And I am your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, otherwise known as BMR. This show goes beyond cryptids and Bigfoot. We take a much deeper dive down that rabbit hole. We take on subjects beyond our very own realms and realities. We look at strange phenomena and the unexplained, such as time travel, alien and UFO existence, strange hauntings and mysteries. We focus on how all of these rabbit holes come full circle versus a separate plane or wherever the rabbit hole leads us. Tonight, we have a great show in store for you. Unidentified S4 with Anthony and Ron. I'll be bringing them up momentarily. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, as well as Texas Front Porch on YouTube. The super chat is open, and also the super thanks is open. Long after the show ends, you folks can, check us out, perhaps give a donation if you like, but your money isn't as important as liking, sharing, leaving a comment. Let us know. Spread the good word about our channels. And also, I'm going to, we've got a little different lineup for you guys. And what it is it's nothing drastic or nothing major. I'm going to go through our lineup for the week. On Mondays, we have Texas Front Porch, which is 7:30 in the East, followed by Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety at 8 o'clock in the East. Then this show, Beyond BMR, that comes on at 9 o'clock in the East. Jason McLean is on a show called Untold AM Radio. That's 10 o'clock in the East. You have to go find the channel for that one. Wednesdays, here's where it's different. The Serial Papers on Wednesdays, we've got Jason McLean, 9 o'clock in the East on Serial Papers. And right after that on Wednesdays, Jason McLean Questions Everything at 10 o'clock in the East. That is with myself and Donnie Cho and Jason. So you got double Jason and Rob on Wednesdays. And we brought on Donnie for Serial Papers. Thursdays is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. That's at 1 o'clock in the East. Another little change, Blondes and Booze are at 9 o'clock in the East. And then we've got the Blondes and Booze and the Woo on Friday at 9 o'clock in the East as well. And don't forget to check out Jessica Jones on Spaced Out Radio. She's on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, 10 o'clock in the East. So enough of that. I see that my co-host, Mr. Tex, made it. He was on Van Buren Variety talking about serial killers. And if you didn't see that show, go check out Bobby Van Buren Variety, and see what they got going on over there.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Tex. What is going on, my main man?
Well, I got to switch gears here, man. I went from from talking about narcissists and serial killers and everything like that to UFOs and aliens. So maybe we can get into some serial killer and UFOs, or I don't know.
I don't know. Hey, you never know. You never know what these aliens have in store for us, do you?
Well, and I'm interested to get these boys' view on my abduction.
Oh, I know you do, Tex. So, I know you do. I wasn't going to have you on tonight as my co-host just because of that, because I didn't want you to suffer any trauma. I didn't want you to take over the show.
Well, I promise I won't do that.
I know you won't. Like, well, you know what?
Even off air, I'd like to get this.
Yeah, I'm going to bring him up right now. I'm going to bring up Anthony from Unidentified S4 and his partner, Ron, Cosmic Neighbors, along with Anthony on Unidentified S4. Thanks for joining the show, you guys. And it's really a pleasure. And thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us. What's up, Tex? Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, good to see you, man. This is a topic that I'm not very well versed in. I go towards the cryptids and that type of thing. but yeah, this is a whole.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience for me. So
Well,
if I ask some, what
Well, that's all right. We'll
I'll
help
be
you.
asking layman questions. So
yeah, no, you know what, Tex? I already set this up while you were still busy working with Bob, and I said, good old BMR and Tex, we know our cryptids, and we're looking to expand our universe and learn more about UFOs, aliens, and lost worlds, and or whatever you guys talk about. And that as I was thumbing through your channel, I am a subscriber. Everyone should subscribe. Your subscription is in the link of the description page of this show. So everybody, please subscribe to Anthony at S4 and Cosmic Neighbors. Ron, that's a channel for you. Is that correct or no?
That is correct. Thank you.
So we've got two different. I'll throw that in the link after the show. If anybody good enough, any of our mods out there want to look that up and put it in the chat, that'd be great too. But when I was first started watching your show, I thought maybe you guys just did UFOs, maybe aliens and stuff like that. But then I looked across the board, Anthony, Ron, and you guys are really, you're kind of like us in a way. I mean, we're trying to expand into other things, but you've talked about ghosts and paranormal. You talk about, I've seen shadow people, lost civilizations. So we've got a lot of everything tonight. But of course, as Tex made mention, we really want to focus in the beginning on the ufology part. And as Tex did mention, he wants to pick your brain a little bit about his his possible abduction, and and that was a story that we did way back. So we got a lot of everything for everybody.
Cool.
And before we get started, man, hey Anthony, how did you first get started, and how'd your channel come about?
Back in 1993, way back when, I had an experience dirt bike riding out in the woods, where I noticed a triangular craft floating in, and it started coming lower and lower into the woods, and it finally stopped about a good football field away from me. And we're not talking small craft, we're talking football field size craft. And I was stopped on my motorcycle. I'm just sitting on the bike in the woods, and I'm looking up at this thing, and it's slowly floating around in a slow circular motion. And then out of nowhere, another one came from the top, and they sat side by side next to each other, and they started slowly rotating around each other. And I'm just staring at these things in shock. Now, in 93, I was 13, so I'm just a stupid kid, and I'm thinking, these are stealth bombers, and now our stealth bombers float, and this is amazing, and I can't believe I'm the only one watching this right now. And just as quick as they came, they set back up the way they came in. They folded back on top of each other, and they shot straight back up in the sky until I couldn't see them no more. And just about the time they hit the distance where I couldn't see them no more, I kind of snapped out of this fog. And it was 12 o'clock in the afternoon when I seen them. And all of a sudden, the sun's going down. It's nighttime. It's 5 o'clock in the evening. So I lost about 5 hours of missing time. And when I came to, my parents were screaming. I mean, screaming on the top of their lungs looking for me. And I had swore that I was in this one spot this whole time. I tried to explain to my father. I was staring at this triangular stealth bomber, and they were hovering around each other. And, my father just smacked me in the back of the head. He thought I was giving him an excuse to be out late and not respond to my parents. And, I got punished for that. It wasn't until like 97 when the Phoenix Lights came about and they started talking about the triangular craft that I was, able to explain to my parents, this is what I seen a couple of years ago when I was dirt bike riding a large triangular craft, that resembled this. And since then, I've been immersed in the subject, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I want you to put a pin in that thought about the lost time, because I know Texas, his brain is already spinning. And, we got to get into you guys a little bit, because I know Tex is ready he's ready to burst. Ron, Cosmic Neighbors, man, tell me a little about what you got going on. How did you get involved in this? And I noticed you just hooked up with Anthony here. What's your story?
Well, my thing is, it's kind of funny in a way. I mean, I was probably one of the youngest kids that had a subscription to like Astronomy magazine. I think it was 12 years old. That's what I asked my parents for, like that. And so I was always like a space cadet, always into space and all that stuff. The UFO thing happened over time. I took interest in it. My father didn't care for it. My mom was always supportive and everything, but I wasn't like into researching until like maybe the mid 90s when Greer Greer was out doing his thing. Had a few sightings, but creating a channel, let me tell you something. When I created it, I thought I'm going to talk about UFOs. I didn't know about UFO Twitter. I didn't know about all these other channels or anything. I just dove in thinking, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to be great. Nobody's going to be doing this. Womp, womp, womp. And it hit me. But along the way, it's been working out because I don't just do UFOs, talk asteroids, or like very diverse, like Anthony. And Anthony and I became friends, and we just, him, I, Eric from Paranormal, we kind of just complement each other really well. And we just work together and look out for each other. And the community that's out there, they're just great. You know what I mean?
Phenomenal.
So,
yeah. And you just mentioned Eric from Paranormal Highway, and you've got, I think, 3 of some of the voices on the last show. I think Tex is a voice. Anthony, you're a voice, correct? I played Satan.
I'm a voice now.
So there's 4 voices for big shout out to Eric. Yeah, we've got 4 of the cast members here. How about that? I didn't even realize that until we started getting into it.
But I think out of all of us, I think I'm the only angel, which is laughable. But
yeah.
How funny! I play Bigfoot. That's a twist, huh?
Yeah.
I should be playing an alien.
And I was actually maybe a little later in the show getting a little of the Bigfoot, because I seen that on your channel too, that you actually dabble in Bigfoot a little bit. You went out, I think in Pennsylvania it was, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of scouting around, maybe, just
up in the Poconos.
Okay. Yeah. I was through the Poconos a long time ago with my first wife. Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Usually that's best.
No, that goes.
The Poconos is supposed to be some romantic, honeymoon getaway, and it wasn't. I'll just, again. But I tell you what, I got a pizza from New Jersey of all places, and man, it was fantastic.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it cost me $35. It cost $35 for delivery, because I looked on the map. It was just over the border from where we were staying, and but anyway, that's a story for another time. We're here to talk with you guys, and let me ask you something about this. When we're all looking into the skies, and I'm starting to look more into the skies. I live outside of Detroit, a lot of factories, a lot of smog, and I don't have brilliant skies unless I go up north. But as a novice, what am I looking for? I see a lot of things that I think, wow, that's not a star. Maybe it's a satellite. Are there any things to look for? Because I thought something was a UFO. I did have a UFO encounter in my backyard with my mom when I was like 7. We'll get in that later. But what do we look for out there? Because half the things that I look at, I don't know if it's a star, a satellite, or is it a possible craft?
That's pretty much the problem. The first thing you want to knock out is any FAA lights. Any strobe lights, green, white, red, blue, you want to knock those right out, because that'll tell you it's some kind of commercial aircraft right off the bat. Mm-hmm. With your eyes, it's kind of hard because satellites don't have strobe lights on them, but they do fly in one particular pattern. They stay the direct course, whatever way they're traveling. They don't defer from their path of travel. So when you see something flowing in the same direction the whole time till you can't see it no more, it's usually a satellite. I like to use all the apps. I like to use the satellite tracker, the ISS tracker, flight tracker. This way I know everything I'm looking at in the sky. And if none of those things highlight on any of those trackers that I'm looking at, then I know it's could be a UFO. And if it's a UFO, then I want to know if it's an unmanned military aircraft or a top secret military project. There's so many different things today that we don't know about that are classified, that go up there and they fly all kinds of strange courses. They supersonic speeds, high rates of speed, different kinds of maneuvers, because they got all kinds of unmanned aircraft. So that's really the problem today. You can't tell what's a UFO and what's not. Some things that appear and disappear vast in the sky, those are the things I like to look for. Odd maneuvers. If it's there 1 minute, it's gone the next, or if it jumps, a couple 100 miles away from the position that it was in when I first spotted it, I like to look at that. So stuff like that I look for.
Or really, I should invest in a high-powered telescope.
Honestly, I telescope's hard because you got to be on a fixed position with a telescope, and you'll only have a certain portion of the sky. For me,
You're
I
better
like
off
to
with
use
binoculars.
binoculars, but I swear by night vision. I have a Psionics camera and color night vision. I swear by that thing. It illuminates everything.
What I meant by the binoculars is like the night vision. I've used his when I've gone to his house on the beach looking up with the Psionics. Anybody that doesn't know, it's a small handheld video camera, night vision. And that's incredible. But like if you don't have a budget and like, let's say you just want something, if you can invest in some nice, if you're not looking to record like that, some nice binoculars, that'll do you well. But like he said, the telescope, nah, that's really for far out distance, you know.
That's if you want to look at planets, the moon, Mars, stuff like that, you know, fixed position on something.
Still not bad to have a telescope. They're always great.
Yeah, it's still not bad.
You know, me and my mother were driving one time and we saw something weird, but I don't think it was well, technically, I guess it was UFO because we couldn't identify it, but it was cigar or oblong, I say oblong. It was cigar shaped, but it was just floating in the sky, and it would change shapes, and stuff like that. But it didn't jet off or anything like that. It was just,
slow and steady.
Yeah, and I went away thinking it was probably a weather balloon, because
or a blimp, it could be.
Well, I don't think a blimp would bend because it was long and narrow and it would bend. And
oh, you mean it was bent? It didn't tilt. You mean it bent?
No, it didn't tilt. It would go into the L shape and then go back and then.
Yeah.
Where did you cite that? Over where?
I was over here in Texas, North Texas, just outside of Fort Worth.
What color was it? Did you happen?
White.
Daytime, nighttime?
Yeah, it was daytime. It was white. And I mean, we were driving down the highway. I was a young kid, and she was like, "Look, that's kind of weird. What is that?" And we just kind of watched it as we drove, and it would just change shape. It would go, like I said, it was long tubular shaped. I guess is the best explanation. And it would just go into an L, and then it would come back down, and then maybe this side would bend down. And I'm like, and then when I got older, I'm like, you see kind of, weather balloons and they have kind of that fluid motion to them. I thought, well, maybe that was it. But it was strange nonetheless.
That's the problem today. You never know what you're looking at. Summertime, you look up in the sky, you have humidity. It can change the shape of an object depending on the distance and the temperature up there compared to the temperature down here. So things can change, look like they're changing. You got the glint from the sun can make something look like it's changing shape. So there's so many different factors, but definitely a cool sighting.
And what you bring up right here, it seems like obviously there's got to be a lot of misidentification when you're in the ufology field. You can go take it to the cryptid field. A lot of misidentification on things. Some people think a bear or the rear end of a moose might be a Bigfoot. But in this case, though, what about these encounters that are closer, right? They're to us, and that people, they actually give a description of, hey, I look like for the lack of a better term, a flying saucer, right? And they call it in, they report it to MUFON or whoever they do. How do we still know that what they seen was what they saw? And how do we know that the picture that's sent in is, I hate to always act like this because I'm not a skeptical guy. I believe in everything, but how do we know or differentiate between what's real and what's not? You know what I mean?
That's the problem, Rob. You really can't today. So many people want to gain attention and notoriety so quick, they'll say anything today. You know what I mean? And some people think that reporting something to MUFON and having them document it gets them the credibility for the sighting, right? So some stories are great, but unless there's multiple witnesses to the story and multiple drawings that coincide with what was seen, multiple people want to come forward, then it's just a good story if you don't have all the witnesses to go with it. You know what I mean?
And
I like to get at
good to be
3
skeptical.
witnesses to go with a story. You know,
Being
especially
skeptical
today.
is not a bad thing either. You know what I mean? Because I don't believe anything blindly. You know what I mean? I've seen things that I can't explain, but I go with Occam's razor a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of, like if I could do the process of elimination, is it birds? Is it this? Is it that? Whatever, the normal things. Once you get rid of all that stuff and the planes, like Anthony was saying with the apps, then you could start really going into it. But there's a lot of hoaxing out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot.
And out of 70% of the sightings that come in yearly, maybe 1 to 2% of those is an actual sighting. The rest is a lot of misidentification. Was it a plane? Was it a helicopter? Was it an unmanned aerial vehicle? Was it a drone? There's just so many things we have today that are unmanned that are capable of performing high speeds and crazy maneuvers in the sky that we just can't explain.
And that's what I was going to bring up is it's got to be especially difficult now with the drone technology, because these they can stop on a dime and move right up, just like a lot of people say the UFOs do that they see. That
Yes,
had to quadruple the misidentifications.
Absolutely.
And now you've got all these drone events that they have that they form. I saw one the other day. They reconstructed a bridge with drones, what it looked like back in the day and stuff. And I'm like, good grief. It's just crazy.
You know what a big problem today is? Mainstream TV and the news. They want to get involved in the UFO subject so bad because the government's talking about it. So it's news today. But they go to the wrong people for the answers. You know what I mean? You go to Jeremy Corbell, and he was at Congress, his stories and all of that. But then we found out that all 3 of those sightings were drones. We just found out that the Tic Tac was a drone from China, they're saying now. Us in the UFO community that studied this, we kind of knew that from the beginning, that they were drones. Even the pyramid-shaped ones that we seen, they were flashing, they were strobing. They had that FAA flash pattern to it. You knew right away that it wasn't a UFO, 100%. Was a UFO, because if anything comes within range of 500 feet, I think it is, to any type of naval vessel, they put up their own drones, and they send ships out to go circle the area and check, because it's a threat to the vessel. So either they knew that it was a drone swarm of their own that they were testing, or a top secret program that they put up to test their men to see what they would do if they seen something like that. But it definitely wasn't aliens. 100% no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked into that last year. I made a video early last year when he came out with all those videos, and they had contracted. I always said this: if they're getting swarmed by drones, right? A drone swarm. How do you train your people to deal with a drone swarm? You need a drone swarm, right? Like that. You can't train them on one or simulated. They're going to have it. And I always thought that. And even to this day, they keep saying it's China, China, China. Some, I believe, are spying. I think most of it's our stuff with them.
Yeah.
If we can back up just 1 minute, were you talking, Anthony, about the Nimitz?
Yes, the Nimitz case.
Oh,
correct.
Wow. I didn't know. See, that's kind of disheartening that you just told me
You had
that.
the Go Fast. You had the Go Fast sighting, the gimbal sighting, and the Tic Tac sightings. They were drone swarms. They were drone swarms, mostly from China.
I'm talking 2019. The one I'm talking about is the Omaha and all those. His is that one, the 2004.
So really, we're at this point. It sounds like we're kind of left relying on the older footage before this technology came to light. As far as and became public and all that kind of stuff. As far as the drones go, the older footage you see, but from back in the 80s, the 90s, that type of thing. Those are the more reliable ones now, aren't they?
Yeah, the older footage is some of the best that you'll ever see. The stories are some of the best. There's multiple witnesses that go to. What happened back in the day when there was a sighting, and teams of investigators flew out. They went and studied the area where the craft touched down. They studied the soil. They went door to door and spoke to neighbors and witnesses. They got actual statements from people. Today, it's all secondhand from the internet. Something happens, we all rush to the site that it was on. We all take the notes down from that site. 2 hours later, we're on our channels talking about it. That's the problem today.
Right.
Nobody's out there getting definitive information, boots on the ground. There's a few of us that go do it, right? But everybody's not doing it. And then, who goes to this channel? Who goes to that channel? Who's regurgitating what they're hearing off YouTube and Google and the news and just spitting it back into the community? So it's a lot of confusing disinformation and misinformation.
So let me get y'all's opinion on this one supposed crash, and that was in Aurora, Texas. It took out a windmill, and then they buried the body. Then they had to move the body, and
the one from the 1800s at the judge's house, was it?
Yeah, he hit the judge's house. Yeah,
I believe that was a legitimate story because there's a lot of corroborating evidence, right down to the priest that blessed the gravesite, and they buried that little ET. Alien, whatever it was. And there was how many witness testimonies were that? It was in the newspaper back then. Back in the early 1800s, early 1900s, people didn't lie about things like that. When stuff like that happened, it was like big news, it was big news. And for things like, they didn't put, bogus stuff in the paper back then. They put real events that happened. They wanted real stories. There was none of this nonsense back then. They didn't play with the news like that.
There was
back
no CNN
then.
and nothing like that.
Right. It was getting the truth out as fast as they could. So yeah, I believe that story. Absolutely.
And even the Texas point, I had I told you guys backstage that maybe I didn't. I don't know. I did actually encounter a UFO, and it was funny because I was in, I think, like the second or third grade. I was young, and I was watching. I love that show, Lost in Space. But my mom, she was, preparing breakfast for me and my brother, and she had a kitchen. The kitchen window all looked into the backyard. We had a pretty spacious backyard, and then all of a sudden, she comes running down the hallway to my brother's bedroom, yelling, "Robbie and Davey!" That's Robbie. Me, Rob, and Dave. But she, and so wakes us up, and I'm like, "Ma!" And even as a little kid, when it's time to get up for school, and I'm like, "No, it's Mom. We got another 15 minutes of sleep." Just get out of bed. I got to show you guys something. You got to see this. So my mom, she takes us into the kitchen, and we look from the kitchen window. She had like a bay window, I should say, excuse me. And we see, you guys, I see this craft, and it was hovering, I'm going to say maybe 500 feet. And you guys, this is why when I tell people the story, they're like, "Oh, you like Lost in Space?" Well, it did kind of look like the Lost in Space vehicle. It was cylinder shaped or round, and it had the bubble on top, and these lights were revolving around the bottom, and we seen it. Then all of a sudden it went straight up into the air. Boom, gone. So she calls my dad at work. He worked at Chrysler at the time and can't get through. And back then, you guys, you don't call a plant. No one has those cell phones. It was the digital, it was your analog phone. And my dad goes, "Pam, you're crazy. What'd you bother me with this nonsense and work?" And hangs up. So my mom rushes me and Dave off to school. The 5 o'clock news comes on, and it was not breaking news. I don't know if they had breaking news back then, but it was the news. And again, she called me and my brother over our bedroom. "You got to see the news, calls my dad. And about 50, 60 people in my city where I live, in my neighborhood, called this in to all the news people, and they did a story and about suspected UFO in the area. And now looking back on that, I think that might have been legitimate.
Oh, definitely, man. You seen it for starters. Your mom's seen it.
Yeah.
The two of you corroborated each other right there. Then other witnesses from your neighborhood seen it. Then it was on the news. I mean, that's amazing. Would you say it was a disc shape with
it
a
was
dome
like
on
a
top?
disc. Yeah, it looked like that. It looked just like the,
like classic UFO disc.
Basic, the classic. Yes, there, right there. Yeah, boom, that was it.
When was this, Rob?
I was in like third grade. I mean, it was into like the mid 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tex brought that up about the technology of today is very confusing versus things of the past. Because my question, I told you that story to ask you something. it seems like, how do you even perform research today on the subject? I mean, first of all, they're in outer space or they're in the air and we're on the ground. It's so much easier if you're a cryptid researcher because we can go into the forest, we can go into the wilderness, we can camp, we can bring our infrared, we can bring all these things. But these people that come up with this discovering of supposed aircraft from another world, that is just, to me, just so much harder and so much harder to explain.
Very, very difficult. That's why they categorize, close encounter of the first kind, second kind, third kind, fourth kind, fifth kind. Now they got the fifth kind. They're talking conscious communication, where you can consciously communicate with the craft and call it in. I'm not too sold on that, but if you want to meditate and try to clear your mind and look at the sky, that's your business. But, like a close encounter of the first kind, that's primarily what people are getting these days, where they go outside, they're fishing, or they're out for a hike and they spot a craft in the sky. So you spot an actual, object in the sky. That's a close encounter of the first kind. That's the most common. The second kind would be when it leaves some kind of trace evidence behind. Now, if the craft leaves some kind of trace evidence behind, then a team like Ron and I and Eric, we can get out there. We could take soil samples from where it landed. We could see if it left anything behind where it set down. And we could try to analyze those materials to see if they're from Earth or not from Earth. If they did any damage to the soil, check for radiation. We could take all those kind of samples. But that's when a craft lands. That's few and far between. So unless that happens, we could, study what we see in the sky. That's it.
That brings up a couple of questions. One, when you go out and you have these what do they call them, second kind or whatever, that they leave physical evidence. Mm-hmm. Have y'all ran into anything that you've analyzed the stuff and go, well, I don't have any other explanation for it? Because I've heard that, of course, you got the crop circles, you got the true crop circles, you got the hoax crop circles. And one way that they're determining the difference is the radiation, and is that something that y'all are looking for?
I would love to get a phone call and say, a UFO just landed on my property. Come check the soil. I have not had that opportunity yet. And I'm not going to lie and say that I did. But I have visited locations where craft have landed in the past and try to, still study what was there. These years pass by now. There's nothing going to be left, but it's still nice to go visit the sites. Hopefully one day in the future, I'll get that call for a fresh crop circle or a fresh landing out in a cow pasture or something where I can really go get soil samples and study. I pray for that to happen every day, but just so far it has not for me. As far as crop circles go, boy, let me tell you, we're small YouTube channels. So for us to go run around spending all kinds of money flying all over the United States to take a chance on a crop circle, I mean, unless one happens in Jersey and I can drive over the bridge, that's another story. But to go chase those down, it's few far between. The only way you really know if crop circles are real is because the nodes on the wheat or whatever vegetable they have, the high amount of radiation that's concentrated when the craft makes contact on the ground, it stretches the node, the knuckle on the wheat or whatever, and it makes it grow like 3 or 4 times more. And then it kills that one section of the plant. And then the rest of it grows for the rest of the year. It'll grow like 10 times more than it should for that year. So that's one way to study the crop circle. But there are people that go around with boards and they flatten the grass down and they throw bits of steel particles and all kinds of stuff on there to make it look like a real landing was there. But those are very few and far between.
My second question is, did y'all know a man by the name of Gianotto?
Does not sound familiar to me by name, maybe by face.
He's dead now, but we interviewed him on our channel, and him and his significant other, they lived in Maine up on a mountain. Okay. They both claimed to communicate openly with these aliens. All right. She claimed to have given birth to 12 hybrid children. They would impregnate her and she would gestate the embryo for, I think, 10 weeks, 9 week time, and 10 weeks. They would come down, get the embryo, take it back to the ship, and let it grow. And they would bring her up on occasion to visit her children. Now, that, guys, that is probably the most fantastic story that I've ever, and by fantastic, I mean fantastical story that I've ever, taken an interview on. And it was just, but there's no doubt that they both wholeheartedly believe what they're saying, whether it's actually happened or not, and they were delusional. I don't know. She's still alive. I haven't heard anything from her, but it was just phenomenal, the stories that they had, So
I've heard
any of that.
Oh yeah, I've heard
sure
there's stories where natural occurrences where the fetus gets absorbed back into the ovary and disappears.
Right.
That can happen naturally in a woman.
Right.
It does happen naturally from time to time. It's a shame, but it does happen. And you don't know what, a woman that really wants to give birth and start a family with her, you don't know what that could do to her by losing the child, right? It can cause all kinds of stuff to happen, right? But who's to say that somebody didn't have that experience? Who am I to say if it's real or fake?
Exactly.
Right? I'm not the judge. So when a situation occurs like that, all I can do is sit back and listen and respect the person telling the story and give them the same respect you give me, unless they allow me to, take blood samples from the children and have it tested and analyzed to see if they're human or not human, and what their DNA looks like and what their structure looks like, and if they have one heart or two, and all kinds of tests like that. If it basically comes down to they're just human, then they're just human. But unless they allow you to do testing, how can you really know? So then it's just a good story, right? Unless you could do testing, unfortunately. But I've heard tons of stories like that. I also hear the secret space program stories where people go away when they're 10 years old and they age regress them into an adult. They do 20 years service, come back, they age regress them back to a child. Do you believe that kind of stuff either?
I haven't heard that one.
I've heard it. I don't know what to do with it, though.
You mentioned something, and I know Tex probably had a thought in his mind. You mentioned a little bit earlier about these alien craft having telepathy with people on the planet, humans, just like we hear a lot of people talk about telepathy with Bigfoot. And it's kind of like, okay, I mean, I believe a lot of these people that say these things because I do. Who am I to tell anyone that they're giving me misinformation? Because I've seen certain things that people don't believe. So I'm the person that's going to say, yeah, I believe what you have to tell me. And I will put out their story if they want me to do so, or with anonymity if they like. It's one of the things I do on the channel as well. But it's like when we're all the four of us are sitting together, we have our audience, we have our people in chat. I'm more apt to believe that an alien can do that versus even a creature out in the forest for some reason, because there's something about the technology behind these things that we're totally unaware of.
Right. I've just come to believe that a species so far advanced, hundreds of millions, if not billions of years more advanced than us, they've acclimated in a way that we can't even comprehend. So maybe they acclimated in a way where they don't have to speak anymore and they can just use their mind and speak that way, right? There's also stories that they don't eat and digest the way we eat and digest our food. There's stories that aliens don't even have teeth, that they kind of have like sandpaper type in their mouth, just the same way whales eat. They believe that they sit in their food in liquid form and digest it through their skin. There's all kinds of stories for the way aliens eat, how they digest food, how they communicate, how they walk, special suits that they wear, and all kinds of stories, right? But until you can physically catch one and study it, we'll never know, right? Those are just great stories to do the science on it, unfortunately.
No,
well, let me ask you this, since you went down that path about catching one and study it. We, of course, cryptid, we have the same conversation, right? Now, I believe, as far as the cryptids go, the government knows what's going on with them. They've got them studied. They've taken them down. They've captured them, the whole 9 yards. That's what I personally believe. Do you think that some of these like alien autopsy things are at least the stories of them are real? Do you think we're cutting these things apart, or do you think we have deals with them? Like, Eisenhower disappeared for 3 days and supposedly had meetings with, either about aliens or with aliens,
I think they have.
Yeah, I think we're at the point. I think we're past that point already. I think
I think they still have.
Well, we know how to.
I think they still have bases, and like there's a certain compartments of it. Like it's not where I don't think it's me personally. I don't think it's something that's real gigantic. Like people think it's like major offices or hundreds of people. I think there's small handfuls of people that get that knowledge passed on to them as it goes, like super above top secret kind of stuff. I think way back when they've made contact, and that's like when you've seen our technology, because if you think about it, look from the 40s, we were getting technological before the 40s. We were right with the cars and everything and planes, but really look from the mid 40s to the early 50s. Watch how we went like this, straight up like a rocket, like that. And that all came from around that time like that. So I think they have.
It's said that the Roswell crash brought us fiber optics, brought us night vision, brought us, what else did they say? Oh, bulletproof vests, Kevlar came from there.
Yeah.
So if that's all true, can you imagine? That was just one crash. Can you imagine if the government did retrievals and took these objects? We're probably already at the point where we reverse engineer them and make them in our own likeness. That's how some of these craft that we have now are operating.
Well, if you remember, Anthony, that first diorama I did, I think it was 1941, Cape Girardeau. That was before Roswell in Missouri. Right. Cape Girardeau, that was a crash and retrieval one. And that one was really credible too, because it's similar to the Aurora, except without the burials, it was a priest they called out to administer last rites. Right. And this guy was one of those ministers in the town of Missouri that, doesn't like, he's just not a lie. He's just a known pastor and everything. And went out there and it turned out that he told his granddaughter and his daughter like one time, and that was it, like that. So, but they've been doing it since a long time. They've been doing this.
So I gotta have a two-in-one question then. So I'd imagine Anthony and Ron, you both do believe that Roswell Area 51 does exist, and we have harbored aliens and craft there, correct?
I do.
100%.
Yep.
So I must ask you one other question. We've heard about the Dulce, New Mexico, supposed underground base where aliens have a base there, and I guess we sent black ops down there to
talk about Phil Schneider thing.
Yeah. Yes. You don't believe that story then?
Unfortunately, Phil Schneider was sick. He was sick. He had mental issues. Phil. He did work on a geological team for the United States government, but they did not carry firearms in his capacity. If just think about it, just do the math here. He stated that 66 CIA operatives, also again 66 special forces officers, FBI, ATF agents went down in that hole and they were murdered by aliens. Do you think for 1 second, if that large group of military people got murdered, there wouldn't be even a cover story for how all those guys got killed? There's no record of any men missing, military men, CIA men, FBI men. There's no record of none of that. That brings to another story that Dr. Greer talks about when he ZZ Top, Billy, what was his name, Ron? The ZZ Top guy?
Oh, I forgot.
Billy or Dusty?
One of
Dusty
the band
Rhodes,
members. One of the band members. Billy Gibbons, is it?
Billy Gibbons and Dusty.
Gibbons. Yes, it is. Yep.
So Billy Gibbons allegedly went on a secret mission with Dr. Stephen Greer to a facility underground to go look at aliens, and they can't tell the story because the whole facility got murdered. I mean, stories like that we've been hearing since forever when it has to do with you as well. It's all nonsense, that kind of stuff.
So Schneider was not taken out by the CIA.
No, I think his own daughter also thinks, he ended up taking his own life with a catheter.
Okay.
Now, that's not to say that there aren't bases in Dulce.
Underground.
Yes, I firmly believe there are. In fact, I know of one or two in Michigan, just south of Lake Superior. There's one that's you can publicly. It's public information, actually.
Yeah,
governmental, not alien.
And they do have a lot of underground bases. They do have a lot. I don't know if they're full of aliens and all that, but there is an underground system they do have. You know what I mean? That's been stated. That's proven because it's a whole bunker system that's connected through the states, especially going out Midwest.
I don't think we have a facility like the movie Men in Black where they're coming in all day long, with their luggage and you come to Dolce and you're going to end up in Roswell and we're going to let you up for a week. Here's your skin suit to look like a human. I don't think they're doing that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish
not squid babies.
So you brought it up. You brought up the Men in Black, and I'm not talking about the movie, right? You think you think there is a Men in Black that are out to change the narrative or come across people that they want to be expound on that they've seen an alien or they've seen a UFO, and you think that group does exist though, and if so, I heard that they're maybe not even human.
Well, I look at it this way: the Men in Black of today are people like Lou Elizondo, disinformation agents,
the media,
Jolly. Who's that other guy from back in the day, the OSI officer, Richard Doty. So those are the Men in Black of today from the 80s forward. The Men in Black primarily were probably like from the 1950s, black suit, black hat, G-Man, standard G-Man from the 50s, standard CIA guy, top hat, nice black suit. That's more or less what the black men were back then. For Roswell, somebody witnessed something on Matt Brazel's ranch for Roswell. They send somebody out there, keep your mouth shut. This is government top secret. You talk, you're going to jail. That happened back then. But the Men in Black of today are like Lou Elizondo, like I was saying, Angeli, they're disinformation agents. They come into our community to spew disinformation, to make you believe all this nonsense that's not true, make you get all riled up about it, and none of it's true. That's what they are today. They're disinformation agents. And you know who they are because we see them on mainstream TV and everywhere we go. That's who the Men in Black are.
And, and we get asked, a lot if some of the people that even in the community are misinformation agents, feeding the narrative and things. And one of the people, Jessica Jones, got accused of being that on our crew, and I'm like, no. But
I know who Jessica is.
Do you think they've got them, inserted into these communities, the UFO
absolutely
online and stuff like that, even the cryptids?
I'm curious because I don't know. Have you ever seen any disinformation agents in your community, Bigfoot wise? There has to be.
Well, that's just it, though. I mean, what are they going to
What are they going to do? Was going to be a question?
Yeah, what are they going to say? I mean, because we've got, the cryptid community, you've got, basically two camps. You've got and I don't want to say 8, but you've got the physical creature camp, and then you've got the woo camp, what they call the woo camp, or we call it Ric Flair. But, it's, so I don't know. I know a lot of people that claim to mind speak with Bigfoot and all this kind of stuff. I can't say they're lying, like you said earlier. Just because it happened to me doesn't mean it's not happening, But the ones that I saw, I firmly believe they were physical creatures. Even the dog man that I saw.
Let me ask you this before I lose my thought. Do you think people that hoax in the Bigfoot community are considered disinformation agents? Do you think that they come into the Bigfoot community, they perform a really good hoax to make your community look bad on itself and say, look, you're going to believe this group of people? Look at these guys, they're hoaxing and they believe in this stuff. So do you think the people that are hoaxing in your community are there to make you guys look bad and like you're not credible? Because then that would be disinformation type people.
Now,
Yeah, well, I mean,
it definitely is. Yes.
Yeah, those people are definitely out there. So yeah, I guess it would be. But when they get outed, in the community, when the hoaxers get outed, the community pretty much washes their hands of them. But it's like you said earlier, when the media talks to people, they talk to the wrong people. I think they're talking to these disinformation, because if you look, a lot of the hoaxers, they're the ones that are famous, for lack of a better term. They're the ones getting all the attention.
Why do you think that is?
Well, disinformation. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense now.
And Ron was trying to chime in something too really quick. What was your comment on that, Ron?
I also look at it that way, but I look at it two different ways with the disinformation. When you have the hoaxes, right? Now, this is not taking anything away from the Bigfoot community, the cryptid community, or anything. But when I look at the UFO disinfo, what are they pushing disinformation about? It's more on technology, right? That's what the bottom line falls to, is the tech. What is that? Like that, what would they actually be doing disinformation for with regard to Bigfoots and cryptids? I mean, you have the hoaxes. You have hoaxes in every community. Right. But like, would government actually come in and do disinfo on Bigfoot stuff and cryptid stuff if it has no impact on like a kind of technology or anything like that? Or do they still come in and do that, knowing that it kind of intersects with the UFO community and everything like that? So they try to cover all angles. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the reason behind it was if they came out and they had disclosure, even to the amount that they've had, arguably, with the UFOs, if they came out even to that point, the belief systems and it would just shatter. I mean, you have to rethink, with the whole UFO thing, you do too. You have to rethink. You're looking at your religious communities. You're looking at, not so much with the UFO community, but with the cryptid community, you have to look at it affecting tourism. You have to look at, if they came out and said, okay, these creatures are real, the environmentalists are going to want to protect them.
Right.
So you're going to have areas that you're not. Yeah, a lot of change.
And a lot of people not want to go out camping and spending the money in the national park.
Right. And you're going to, on the flip side of the coin, you're going to have people wanting to put a head on the wall.
Okay.
It's bigger than that. You can't do any more deforestation, logging. They're going to need protection for these animals. Businesses are going to crumble. Jobs are going to crumble. If you go ask a forestry officer, if you said to a forestry officer, I had a Bigfoot sighting, we got to get forestry officers out here, we got to go look for this thing, they will not give you the time of day. And that's happened time and time again already with sightings. Yep. You can't get a forestry officer or a wildlife reserve officer to go out after you had a sighting and go out there and look with you. It'll never happen. They won't acknowledge it. It won't happen. Same thing up in Alberta, Canada, where they try to get species protection. They wouldn't do it. The government wouldn't do it. And why do you think that is? Because if they do it and they give species protection, there's a lot of things that are going to stop. A lot of things are going to stop work-wise.
But it is weird. You've got states in the United States that have that protection in place. You've got in Canada, like you were saying, you've got a Sasquatch Prudential Park. And when they were questioned about it, they said they named it that as a joke.
Right.
You've got the 1973 pamphlet from the park up in Washington, I believe it was, where they listed Bigfoot as part of the fauna, and said these were tracks were found, blah, 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 don't please. And they list them and don't feed the animals, and they list a Bigfoot. And when questioned about it, it was a joke. So it is, I think, here's what I think. I think with UFOs, they're doing what I call soft disclosure. Okay. And it's taken almost 100 years. Okay. I think they're doing the same thing with Bigfoot. The other cryptids, I don't think we'll ever see disclosure on not in my lifetime, but I think they're doing the same along the same lines as they did with the UFOs. Because honestly, when they first made the big announcement, oh, the government, admits to UFOs, and it came out. I mean, everybody was like, what was the reaction? It was not everybody. It amazed me because none of the communities were really talking about it. I figured, man, YouTube channels are going to blow up about this. Blogs are going to blow up about this. Social media is going to blow up with this. And it was hardly a blip on the radar. Everybody went, we knew.
Yeah,
well, I think that's where we're headed with Bigfoot.
What do we need them to disclose to us? Unless it's some kind of energy that they can help us clean energy or something. Like everybody knows what they've seen. Everybody knows what they've experienced. So, like, I think a lot of people are at the point we don't need government to tell us what we already feel and know.
We already know.
Experience. You know.
And really quickly regarding that conference that went out with the information that was brought upon, when the two guys from the DOD, when they were being questioned, and I don't want to get into this, but a lot of the things that was reported back in their answers, many of us, and I'm a novice in ufology. I already knew a lot of the things that they were saying, and they avoided a lot of the questions, and that's why I think too a lot of people just judged it as whatever. It was I think they did a disservice to the actual people in the field, and just didn't. They were just very black or gray, I should say, about everything. We're going to come up on you. I got a couple of things I want to get with you guys at, and I know Tex. I want to end the show with talking about Tex's his encounter and what happened to him, because I think you guys are really going to enjoy it and give him some help in that area. But when I come back, there's just two things I like to talk about regarding these civilizations, right? If they are alien, and also if we are actually aliens from the future. So I'll let you think about that for a little bit.
And we're
going to good the cosmic neighbors. We're on Beyond BMR with Anthony and Ron from Unidentified S4 and Cosmic Neighbors. We will be back in 5 minutes. It's Tex, it's BMR. Everybody in chat, hang out for 5 minutes. Smoke them if you got them. Get a drink, get a refreshment. The second half is going to be a whale of a show, and we're going to use Texas new break. See what we got going on here.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
All right. Good job, Tex, on that. I see you fix up the blondes and booze and the woos picture. When you had to think, you know what it was? It was me, Tex. I didn't put up the ticker tape because I was saying, how come I can't see the bottom of the blondes and booze? And I just realized I did not put up the ticker tape. I thought here I was going to give you the credit, but it was me for forgetting to put up the ticker tape. How about that? So I guess I can't do that now. We got a great show. Everybody subscribe to S4, Unidentified S4. And that's with Anthony and Ron. They do a show, a great show. And Ron is with the Cosmic Neighbors. Please subscribe to them. And don't forget to subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob and Texas Front Porch. Of course, this is simulcast on both our channels. So wherever you are out there, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. And another thing I do have to bring up. The comment thing is big nowadays on YouTube, and I've also noticed something, Texas, you've noticed. And Anthony, I think I saw it on one of your shows. Make sure that the alert bells are on because I'm noticing a lot of our viewers, our listeners, the alert bells are not going off. You might have to go back in there and turn them back on because YouTube likes to play games, I think, sometimes.
Yes,
I think it's with the people that have. If you're a cryptid guy, you're a UFO guy, an alien guy. If you're anything that's otherworldly, they tend to give us a little bit of crap. So make sure that all those things are in place for us and for yourself, so you don't miss any of these shows.
Well, and another thing that I noticed the other day, and it's something that people might be missing, is there's 2 settings for alerts. You have YouTube alerts. And you have the alert bell for each individual show. You have to make sure that both of those are on. So,
and your phone, if you like use your computer and your phone will override everything. So if you like, the best bet is, if you want to make sure, you go to notifications, turn them off, and then turn them on and hit all. Just hit all, and then you're covered. And just don't mess with it within the mobile like that.
Okay.
Unless
So
that's all you have, then you just set it to all.
Okay, so do it from like your computer system, basically.
If you can.
If
you
can.
don't have, that's the best thing. Yeah.
It does make some sense, because I noticed that the phones are different than the computers. I use both all the times. In fact, when I watch a show, I'll put it on my TV and I'll use my phone and chat, because I don't like to sit back at the computer.
I do that too.
Yeah. No,
But then
it's awesome.
YouTube will start sending you notifications to your phone and not to your desktop.
I got you.
Or to your like, once you mess around with your phone, they're a little screwed up. They got work to do on that, but you either could get unsubscribed or the notifications. That happens to my members all the time now.
Awesome. Thanks for that information, Ryan. I didn't even think of that. And text too. Well, you brought up a good point as well. And let's make sure everybody does that. And again, thanks everybody. The super chat is open. Long after the show ends, the super thanks is open. It's something new that YouTube put out. If you're watching the show later on and you like our content, hey, if you want to drop a couple bucks, please do. Although sharing, subscribing, leaving a comment is more important, because we grow if you don't share. We grow via you folks out there sharing us, and that's our preferred accolades given towards us. I thank you for that. And of course, we have Mondays, Texas Front Porch, 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays, they have Beer and Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Jason McLean's got a show called Untold Radio. That's 10 o'clock on the East. You got to go subscribe to that one. That's on another channel. On Wednesdays, Serial Papers, a little different. Serial Papers and Jason McLean Questions Everything are now on one day. It's on Wednesdays. Serial Papers, 9 in the East with Jason and Donnie Cho. Sometimes I may or may not be there depending on my schedule, but I will be with Jason McLean Questions Everything right after that show at 10 in the East. And then Thursdays, Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob at 1 o'clock in the East. And then the Blondes and Booze, well, you get a double package deal with them, because on Thursday, the Blondes and Booze are on at 9 in the East, and then you get the Booze back on Friday. Yes, you do. You get them again. Blondes, Booze, and the Woo, just a different name. We added the Woo to that. That's 9 in the East. And of course, our lovely friend Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio. Go check her out on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, 10 o'clock in the East. And great gal, beloved member, still member of our team. People got other things going on. And, before I ended, when we went to our break there, I said, I talked about something, and Anthony said this would be up Ron's alley. What about these advanced civilizations, you guys? Is that something, do you believe, like we all watch the shows Ancient Aliens, see all these civilizations? I often wonder, were aliens here well before us? And also, does that kind of reflect on, are we actually aliens from the future? It sounds kind of out there, but then again, this is an outdoor type of show. So yeah, I see Anthony grinning. So he's he don't believe none of that jazz.
No, he's just grinning because he sees my face. He sees I'm ready to go.
Oh, okay, you're ready to go. Well, Ron, why don't you go for it?
Well, it's funny. I'm sorry, because it's just weird, because I just was talking about this. We've been talking about this the last few days. Nothing with the ancient aliens. All right. I believe aliens have been here like a long time, and now and all that. Yes. I have this theory right now, because there's some proven facts of, like, science takes us back without going into a giant history lesson. They say civilization was basically the ancient Egyptians and the Sumerians and all that, right? But then what happened is Göbekli Tepe came up, right? They found that in Turkey. Now that took civilization, that moved it back more. And that threw a curveball into everything, because that was the beginning of agriculture and everything. So that was like a true technological civilization, right? They weren't just hunter and gatherers, right? So anyway, so what I'm getting at is, there was a cataclysm that happened about 12, 13,000 years ago. it's just known, right? Like the giant floods. They believe it was probably fragments of a comet. I believe this is what's goes on. This Earth is what, 4.5 billion years old. We been around. Let's just say 20,000 years. We've been around and like been smart, right? Where we're able to hunt, build pyramids, and all kind of stuff like that. Now, if you put a car right out on the street and leave it alone for 1,000 years, that's gone. There'll be trees. It's like it never existed. Every part of it gone, reabsorbed into the earth, right? So imagine 10,000 years. But if you push it back, what about 1 million or 20 million years? I have a feeling we've had civilizations many times over like that. And I think there was sometimes super technical civilizations that seen something coming and actually just went left. Got out of here. Some didn't, never. I think people, whatever form we were always like this. Humans got wiped out so many times already. Like Anthony calls, which he's doing his show, Great Reset.
Great Reset.
Like that. The Great Reset is like, you wouldn't know. There wouldn't be anything left after millions of years. But imagine we're here billions of years. I think, so to cut my short story even shorter is, I think that we went out, and not that we're all aliens out there, but some things that come back are us. We escape this planet, send them back probes to see what's going on. Maybe is the planet livable again or anything like that? Who knows?
See where we're at technologically.
It's just been here so long. Like, we can't just say, oh, we're the ones that became smart. Evolution, it was us. Like that.
And you can't
Evolution
say it's not plausible.
It could have happened 10,000 times already.
Right.
Because billions of years is a long time.
Certainly. And you can't say it's not plausible, right, Ron? Because we're already looking to do it again. We're looking to go back to the moon. We'll bases on the moon right now by 2030. We'll be on Mars.
And if you look at it that way, like our space stuff in the 60s, right? Is when we basically started, and the space race for the moon, right? So take that. Let's take from 1960 to now. What do we got? We got 62 years since then, like 1960 to now, 62 years. In another 62 years, imagine where we'll be. And that's only 144 years then. So count another 1,000, 10,000 years, how smart and everything. A lot can happen in that time.
A lot.
You know what I mean? So I just have a feeling there's been a lot that's gone on and everything. That's why when you say Atlantis or something, everybody gets freaky, like, oh, here comes the Atlantis thing. Why not? You know, why couldn't we be out there already? Like, why couldn't we see something or just not even escaping the planet, just moved on and just went out, and we became super technical and figured it out, what we're trying to do now.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that a super advanced version of us is out there, has been and is now, and when these great planet catastrophes happen, they look and they say, okay, well, it's we got to wait till the planet cools down, gets back into its rhythm and everything, and maybe they send more of us, and they just keep repopulating the planet.
Well, think about it, right? So you remember, like I brought up Göbekli Tepe before, right?
Right.
So Göbekli Tepe was discovered, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. It's in Turkey. I don't know if you heard of Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson of them. But anyway, this is a site that it was an astronomical site. Besides agricultural and hunters and gatherers living there, and all the megalithic stones there, giant stones with carvings. And I mean like 50, 100 tons, 100-ton stones like that, like hunter-gatherers were supposed to make. And I'm not suggesting it was aliens. what I'm getting at is what they did was, this is what's remarkable about it. It took them so many years to make this. They built this astrological thing of the constellation, and then what did they do? They buried it. They intentionally buried it. And when you look at it now, what it tells you is, it shows you a constellation of the Taurid media system that around the time Göbekli Tepe was built, before there was a cataclysm that we passed through the Taurid media stream, and it was more likely that we went into a comet that was there broken, that hit the earth, flooded the earth. There's a black mat from 12,600 years ago, goes around the whole world like that. A lot of scientists now they're starting to come around to it. Some just ignore it. But what I'm getting at is, when you look at all the stuff, all the pyramids around all the world, right? It's all like always pointing into the stars, astronomical. And I think now that those were built not only for power systems and that, the astronomical stuff is because of the cataclysms that happened. And that's what they're looking for, because most of them always point to the cataclysm of the Taurid media stream. They end up with those constellations. And I was just seeing something not too long ago, some series, and it just filled in the light bulb for me. I was like, whoa, like that. So, I mean, am I saying that, oh no, I'm absolutely correct? And of course not. I would never do that. But
so let me see if I'm on track with you, because I'm not real sure.
Sorry
I'm on the
about
same
that.
page.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of information.
The pyramids are kind of like points on a map for them, reference points for, when these when these events happen, that the pyramids are still there, they survive, and they use them as reference points. Is that, I mean,
No. I know I threw a lot of information out there at once. That's why Anthony was laughing before, because when he heard that, he knew I was going to go la, 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 like that.
Comes out.
No, the pyramids. I don't think we use as reference points. There's a lot of
you have
evidence.
to remember, Ron. You have to remember, you're not when you're talking to me, you're not dealing with the sharpest sandwich in the toolbox. So
No, that's cool. And trust me, there's a lot of it that I don't understand. So it's all good, but I'm sorry. Like, I get excited and I'll go fast and everything. I don't.
Oh, hey, I get you, brother.
But
the
pyramids,
you keep rolling, man.
Yeah.
No,
you keep rolling, Rod, and I was just nodding and going, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" But I love it.
the pyramids, I think. Okay, because they line up with Orion's belt and all that. I think those were more because there's evidence that they were using them like as power plants because of the chemicals in them. But those are the three main ones. Those three big pyramids, the Great Pyramid, the ones that we all know. There's hundreds of other pyramids that came after that they tried to build, but those three and the Sphinx have been there way before the Egyptians. Like that. The Egyptians so happened to come and populate that area and take that, but they didn't build those pyramids. Those three pyramids, they didn't build. They were there. It just so happens Khufu, the pharaoh, had his people scrap his. Imagine that. You build these giant things, perfectly smooth, everything, and then your name, you're going to have them etch it in with a copper thing like that. You know what I mean? So he claimed it. So the pyramids were thrown in there because I was just talking about date references. But the astronomical stuff is more like, you'll see, if you're not familiar with Göbekli Tepe, that's something I think you would be probably interested in. Maybe you're not, you know what I mean? But if you look that up, Göbekli Tepe, it's in Turkey, and there's a bunch of other tepes out there now, and they're finding more. That's really interesting stuff, because scientists actually believe we started like really maybe, I don't know, 6,000, 7,000 years ago.
Right.
Like that, not saying like humans, like they found Neanderthals 100,000 years ago, but like smart civilization, put it that way.
Right.
And when they found Göbekli Tepe, that kind of like threw a big curveball into it, because we weren't supposed to be knowing about agriculture and all that stuff That's an intelligent
How did they
civilization.
carve those stones back then? They had to have some kind of
Out of
advanced
a solid piece of 50-ton stone, they actually carved into it to make a 3D thing come
laser
out like this.
with laser precision. With laser precision, they carved
I
it.
could, yes, and I could tell you guys, Tex and I are totally into this, and so is Be Kind. Ron is right. The synchronicity of all of the megaliths on Earth compared to the solar alignments and the Earth's electromagnetic energies, we can't, ignore this.
Okay, I got a question for y'all, because everybody's got a different theory on this. And since we're talking about the electromagnetics, we're talking about the pyramids, we're talking about the lineups, we're talking about all that stuff. I mean, we haven't even talked about the images that you can only see from 1,000 feet up and before they make any sense.
The Inca lines.
Yeah, the Inca lines.
Yeah. What about ley lines? I mean, they move, okay, and we talk about catastrophes and everything, and a lot of people talk about the pole shift. The pole shift has happened time and time and time again, folks. It's nothing new. We're not going to stop turning just because the pole flips, and it doesn't. I don't think it truly does a 180. I'm not real sure, but I know the true north does move. But where do you think ley lines play, if at all, a part in all of these things lining up? Do you think that they're just random lines created by volcanic movement under, or do you think there was something more at play there? Because what we're seeing in the cryptid community, in the paranormal community, is we see a lot of stuff happen along these ley lines, especially where they intersect, So
it's like there's a magnetic force and all that, right? And you could see, like, even on balance, it's just, that's some weird stuff, that ley line stuff.
Yeah, well, ley lines are straight alignments drawn between various historic structures. That's what ley lines are, Yeah. They were developed like sometime within the 20th century. I think 20th century Europe, but they all connect, these ley lines.
Yeah. I think there's a grid that goes around this whole planet. That's what Tesla was trying to tap into also.
Yeah, wireless electricity.
Yeah. And you know what, you guys, gosh, this is so fascinating. We're going to have to do part 2 on this. I wanted to save some time because my buddy Tex, and I'm going to let him, you guys have to hear some of this story and what he's come across. And I know he wants to pick your brain a little bit on this.
Love to hear it.
Oh, please do.
And I want to have Tex tell these gentlemen and everybody, once again, that's listening, what happened to you, what you think might have happened, and the occurrences after the investigation.
Well, this happened several years ago. Me and another investigator, DDoS, was out in Brown Springs, Oklahoma, which is a place we both love to go. And long story short, we went in the field. We came back because we were hungry. We didn't look at the clock. I think we were in the field at 7:30, 8:30 in the morning. We came back. We thought it was about noon. It ended up being 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We walked past the turnoff to go to the truck because we were down in the bottoms, and we missed it by a quarter of a mile. Okay, which, I know that's odd, but we backtracked. We found it with no problem. We went back to the truck. Blah blah. Hey, it's 4 o'clock. What the hell?
I know that feeling.
So we didn't have any ill effects. We didn't wake up from a fog or anything. The time was just gone, and we didn't know where to put it. We very seldom talked about it privately, much less publicly. It was just a really strange event. And then what made it even weirder, he had a digital camera with him, and was filming. Well, you know how when you have a brand new SD card, and when you start it, you know, it's in sequence 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, when he looked at the SD card, it was all jumbled up. Okay. And then now this point has been argued. I don't know. The only thing that I remember seeing of the footage, because you got to check this out, it was somebody or something had the damn camera sprinting through the woods. We never left each other's hip. Okay. The camera, who or whatever had the camera, spun around in 360, and neither one of us were to be seen.
What?
Okay. Yeah. And there's Jessica Jones remote viewed this for me. She said we were both abducted, and she mentioned that there was the camera hit the ground at one point, and because I got zapped up and of course dropped the camera and tried to hightail it. I don't blame him. Hell, I would have too. But and I had never seen that part of the footage. The only part of the footage that I ever remember seeing was, the weird numbers being jumbled up, and him or whatever had the camera just sprinting through the woods. Now, we had a second part of this show on Rob's show, and two of the people in chat knew D, and they said they had seen the part of the footage where the camera dropped and D was running off. Now, D says that doesn't exist. That never happened. I don't know. Okay. I never saw it, so I can't say that it exists or not.
Well, they're really quickly to two people. It was not even two people in the chat room seeing it, corroborated it. They had no reason to make it up.
So, I mean, huh?
Who has the footage?
From what I understand, it no longer exists.
Okay.
There was a lot of things that happened personally with him, and how that goes. It's very unfortunate, but I don't know. The whole abduction thing is, I think I'm still in denial about it. Honestly, it's just hard for me to get my mind wrapped around. She remote viewed it, said I was taken up, said that I didn't go down without a fight. One of them made a remark about, we got a big one. It's really insane. Supposedly
you get abducted and insulted all at the same time.
Right. But I don't know. It's just, I'm still trying to, I don't know where to put it.
If I could make a suggestion, Tex, I mean, it's not for everybody, but you could try hypnotic regression.
I've thought about that, and I just don't know if I trust anybody enough to dig around in my brain when I don't have control over it.
I'm right there with you, because I said the same thing when it was offered to me. But if it was somebody respected that I trusted, I would probably allow it, because I want to know where 5 hours went. I want to know what happened between the 5 hours from my case, right? So, I mean, if that's something you ever are willing to do, I'll go do it with you. We can go kill two birds with one stone. I'll get mine done. You can get yours done.
And you have somebody that you trust with you, so that no funny business. Like when I say this word, you go rob a bank or something like that.
Right.
I don't want to hear the doorbell go, whoop, 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 whoop. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just weird, because I don't want to be one of those people, because I had somebody tell me one time, oh, well, you've seen this, you've seen this, you've seen this, you've seen this. And it almost hurts your credibility, because why are you so special that you're having all these encounters? I wish the hell I knew.
Right. We don't have the answer as to why. I'm outside every single night. That's why I see a lot of stuff, because I go out there and I spend the time and I look for it. If people spent more time looking up, they would see things too. If they spent more time out in the woods, they might have a chance of having an encounter with a Sasquatch or anything else that's out there, right?
Yeah.
You got to be out there to witness it. And we spend the time. That's why we're fortunate enough to see these things. So anybody else that doesn't believe your story or mine or anybody else as well, then, I
just don't want to be one of those people that, I've experienced everything on the planet. No, that's not. And I don't even want this, folks.
Be grateful you were able to experience that, though, man. That's a blessing.
Yeah, Anthony, that's a good point. Another point too, Tex, and you know this, Tex. Just like myself, or I can't speak for Anthony or Ron, so people that have an experience and they become part of the know, whether it's Sasquatch, alien, UFO, I often find that these same people, after that first encounter, many other things start happening. For some reason, Jessica talks about the pineal gland. You concentrate more because you're more receptive to these things, and they find a way into your life. I believe that. There are researchers that have been out there for 40 years in the field. They haven't even come across maybe just a footprint. I would think that if I spent 40 years looking for Sasquatch and did not even see one, I think that'd be a very disappointing career. Wouldn't you not agree? And maybe there's something about these people that just don't believe.
Do you know why it's alleged that the pineal gland is calcified on us? Because the fluoride in our toothpaste and our drinking water, the fluoride calcifies the pineal.
I've heard that, yes.
And if your pineal gland, your third eye, if it wasn't calcified, you could probably speak telepathically. You could probably use more than 10% of your brain if you had the access to your pineal gland. If you look back at ancient Egyptian times, the pineal gland that looks like the pine cone, it's in all these ancient depictions. It's on carvings in all the pyramids and all these megalithic structures. You see that pine cone is the pineal gland. They worship that. They knew that was the gateway to the other side, the third eye. It was worshipped. It's even on our money. You have the pyramid and then the eye on top. That eye signifies the pineal gland, the third eye. So
it's staring us right in the face, the truth. It's out
right
there.
Right. It's right there staring in the face.
It's right in our face. Yep.
It's a very important link to our past, present, and future. If you had access to that, God only knows what you would have real access to. That's the truth.
See, and another problem I have is I have the same problem with a lot of investigators that they want money to take you out in the field. They want this, they want that. The people and like many of us, they say, well, I'm looking for the truth. I'm looking for the truth. But these people that claim to be capable of doing this regression and all this kind of stuff, first thing they tell you is, well, it's going to cost you this much money.
I'm so
if you really want the answers, you'll sit down with me and try to get them.
That's right.
That's the way I see it. And I hate to say that, but I understand on the flip side of the coin, I understand that they got them, this is what they're doing for a living. This is how they make their living. I get that, but
you don't need to charge somebody $4,000 to go sit outside in a circle and look at the sky. Right?
And I'm not real sure about, I've just learned recently that there's people that, claim to be able to do this remotely. I don't know how much that I don't know how much water that carries with me. I just really don't.
Well, I'll tell you this, Ron and I, we tell everybody, you want to come out and try to have that UFO experience, come out with us. We don't charge $1. I'll even let you use my equipment. Come hang out. You may see something, you may not, but you could come out. I'll show you what I know, what I can do and how I do it. And I'll teach you what I know. And if you want to come out and try and have an experience, come meet me. You're more than welcome to come anytime. Or we do paranormal investigations too. Come out with us anytime. We'll take anybody. Don't cost you a dime. Just however you get here.
Well, and that's how we run our outfit too. You know, you want to come out with me, you're more than happy to. I'm not going to foot the bill for your flight if you, but
Right.
you know,
You want to come, you're more than welcome.
right,
Yeah.
right. Now, when you get out there, you're my responsibility, and that's the way I look at it. Of course,
Right.
you know, it's. I guess there's a little bit of difference between going out and looking at the sky than versus romping around in the damn woods looking for a creature that can tear your head off. But you know, it's. I don't know. It's just I have such a problem, and that's a failure on my part, the trust issue. But to me, it's also a self preservation thing, because I'm like, I just don't want people digging around into my head. Half the time, I don't know what the hell's going on in there, much less anybody else. But you know, I just haven't got there yet. Like I said, I don't think, and as much as I have seen evidence of Jessica being right on this kind of stuff, you know, there's a part of me that hopes the hell she's wrong, you know, and because I like I said, I don't want to be one of those guys. I really, really don't. I would be more than happy to find out, oh, well, you know, you and D were drugged. And, you know,
yeah, I think that was highly unlikely about that. Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, we were walking through the woods and a branch fell down, hit us both in the head. But see, none of that makes sense. The math in that doesn't add up, because we didn't wake up from anything. It was just gone.
It was more like you snapped out of a fog, right?
No.
How was it? How'd you come out of it?
We didn't realize the time was missing until we got back to the truck.
But the whole experience, nothing changed from point A to point B?
Nothing. We don't remember.
With me, it was like I snapped out of like a fog.
See, it wasn't right. It wasn't like that with us. It was just like, what the hell happened?
What time? And what time did this happen around?
7:30, 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, Tex, I was going to ask.
Okay.
Tex, I was going to ask, and maybe I forgot. Did you at least mention at least one thing that you thought that the time flew by quicker than normal, though? Was that you? Like you're like, it's noon now, it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
like, wow.
It felt that way, but because the only reason we turned around, one, we had to go pick his kids up from the bus stop. Two, we were getting hungry. We thought it was about lunchtime. We thought, well, we'll go grab some lunch, then we'll go pick the kids up and everything. So we thought it was about 11, noon o'clock, you know, something like that. We get back to the truck after we missed the turnoff, and that's the only thing. That right there, we missed the turnoff to the truck by 1/4 mile.
That's very strange.
But we both have recollection of the trip, of the whole trip in our minds. Okay. So in our minds, there was no missing time. But when we got back to the truck, it was 4 o'clock in the freaking afternoon.
And how many times have you made that trip?
Since then?
No, like before that happened, was that something you've always made that trip?
No. This was early in when this was like maybe the second trip out there for me, you know.
Oh, see, because I was going to say if there was a lot, maybe it's just force of memory. That's why you didn't even realize it or something.
Because I didn't even know the area that well.
Yeah, you weren't really familiar.
He did. He knew it like the back of his hands, and that was what was weird about missing the turn off to the truck. You know, because we walked past it and we're like, and I don't remember which one of us said it. Maybe it was both of us. Like, God, we've been walking a long way. We missed something, didn't we? Wow. And that's when none of this looks familiar. And we turned around and, how did we miss this type thing?
That's wild.
I have no explanation for it.
The video though is fascinating about somebody sprinting through the woods. That's nuts.
The camera footage is just beyond belief. It really is. You know, everything that went wrong with the camera, and whether the footage exists or not of D dropping the camera, or the camera dropping and it's showing D running off, I don't know about that part. But if you just take the fact that somebody or something had the camera, spun around, and neither one of us were around, and we never left each other's hip that whole trip, and then the footage being all jumbled up on digitally, number wise, that in itself, I mean, I just, like I said, I don't know where to put it,
Yeah,
It's a lot to process.
because I've seen these, I've seen with these critters. I mean, I've encountered these critters out there. I've dealt with the paranormal out there, unfortunately, because
Can
it's
I ask
all
you a
wrapped up
question?
into one big crap.
Do you guys subscribe to the theory that Bigfoot could be extra dimensional, come from through another porthole or something like that?
Okay.
You believe in that? Because if you subscribe to that, maybe you walk through a different time slip or something.
Well, and that's a possibility, one of the porthole things.
Yeah, portal.
Yeah,
Portal.
but
Dex likes to say porthole. Yeah, he's fucking that one. I subscribe to that theory, by the way. I
Okay.
subscribe to all theories.
Yeah, me too. I think it's very plausible.
Well, I don't. Okay, let me put it this way, and it's like I said earlier. What I saw, I firmly believe to be physical creatures, and I don't think they have any of these special abilities. I think there's something out there that is presenting itself as these creatures. Okay, I think it's a possibility. Now, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong, but I think you have to ask yourself, if you're one of these people that communicate with these creatures telepathically or through your dreams, however you do it, I think you have to sit down and you have to ask yourself, is it possible that it's not Bigfoot? Because y'all investigate the paranormal. Paranormal 101, spirits are going to lie to you. They're going to do anything they can to get their foot in the door with you.
That's right.
If they know that you're out here looking for this creature,
they may use that against you.
Why wouldn't they present themselves with that? Because 9 out of 10 people, you get 1 or 2 answers when you ask them, well, how do you know it's Bigfoot talking to you? The first answer is, well, they told me it was. The second answer is, I felt it. That's not good enough for me. Just dealing with what, just thank you, be kind. Just dealing with what I've seen out there. There's other things at work. Okay. I mean, we captured, D was driving. I love going to there's a cemetery that sits about 100 yards up the hill. And it's been, it's dilapidated and been disrespected in so many ways. But I like going up there. And he was driving by the road, down the road one time. He just snapped a picture, just sent it to me just to show me how grown up it was. Here's your favorite place, type thing. Ha, ha, ha. And I looked at the picture, and this big black shadow sitting back in the trees jumped out at me. And I texted him back and I said, well, what about that big fella back there in the shadow, in the trees? The next text I get back is, holy shit. So we went out and took comparative pictures and measurements. This thing measured 14 feet tall. We could not recreate the photo. This was a daylight photo. Okay. Jump forward years. And at that point, we thought it was some big alpha male Bigfoot that we had caught. That, and so jump forward years later. I'm out there with a group of people. I have 3 expert trackers that go out there with me. I think one of them may be in chat, Pops. But we had just a lot of weird shit happen one night. And we was coming out, and it was at night, and we was coming out, And Junior, something caught his eye. He was looking around, and stuff. And there's a little mound that kind of goes up on the hill, and it's small. He found 4 hoof prints that were 12 to 14 inches around. And they were in a bipedal pattern. Okay. Now you put that together with what we caught on that picture.
Demonic.
Exactly.
Sounds demonic.
Now, there's another piece of the puzzle. We contacted, I think it was 4 or 5 different individuals. Didn't know we were contacting them. Had new people that knew of the lore of the place. There was a couple of mediums in there, and all of them came back to the same thing. They said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that there was a dark, ancient, huge entity that was either controlling that place or protecting it. So now I'm thinking we got that damn thing because it is just a dark shadow. It looks like Andre the Giant standing back there with a big bushy hairdo and everything.
Wow.
You know if there was any sacred ground over there or anything like that?
Yeah, was any sacred ground?
Cemetery, and see, originally, what the hill that this cemetery sits on, we believe is a burial mound.
Was it anything Native American?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what a burial mound is, Native American.
And even if it wasn't originally the burial mound, even if we take that out of the picture, the fellow that owned this property was Native American. Okay.
What he
owned over 100 slaves.
Well,
okay.
There you go.
And it gets better. It gets better. Then there's the guy that owned it well after he did, saw this big hill with a fresh spring at the bottom. And that's another thing. The spring runs directly underneath the cemetery.
There's a water spring on that property too?
It runs directly underneath the cemetery and bubbles up at the bottom where this picture was taken. Okay.
Water can store paranormal energy and negative energy.
So, this fellow that got a hold of the land saw this and went, "Oh, what a great place to put my pig pens," and built pig pens in the cemetery on top of graves.
That's disgusting.
You don't get any more disrespect.
Yeah, sure.
That. Okay. Now you add into the fact, okay, this is on the Red River. This is a crossing at the Red River. There's several different crossings down there that date back to, 18 and further. Okay. Now the youngest death date on this in this cemetery is 1924.
Okay.
And it goes back from there. Now, the place that the entire area has a very dark and bloody history. Okay. Even up until the back in, I think it was the 50s and 60s, maybe even in the 70s, that the Dallas Fort Worth Mafia used it as it was one of their popular body dumps. Okay. Now
there's a ton of negative energy here on this site.
And then, dude,
sacrilegious.
There's been several bodies found in recent times in the area. We shot a documentary down there. 2 weeks later, there was a body in the river. They still haven't released any information on that body. Okay. It's insane when you start going into the history of this place, and it's such a and the cryptids and the paranormal just blend right into each other, because I'm sorry, and I may piss a lot of people off here, but this is just my personal belief, folks. If you've got something, and you know what, Jason has a good analogy on this, and I'll tell you what it is. A lot of people in here has heard it. If you see something, if you see an 8-foot tall dark shadow with red glowing eyes out in the woods, what is it? It's Bigfoot. Everybody's going to say it's Bigfoot.
You want it to be a Bigfoot, but you don't really know.
But you take that same scenario and you saw this thing at the end of your bed. What is it? It's
Demon.
demonic. Right. So what are we dealing with out there? Because these things are being seen alongside in the same areas with these cryptids. Now, that goes right back to do what?
That's UFOs too, man. You had a light bulb go off in my head because I see shadow people.
Mm-hmm.
You see UFOs, you get that feeling inside your gut. Some people get that telepathic message that they're seeing aliens that go outside.
I think it's all interdimensional somehow.
I think that, I say it all the time on my channel. I think these are interdimensional entities that we're messing with. They can, like you said before, they appear to you. They appear to you how you want to perceive them. They want to show you what you want to see, because by you looking at them and showing them attention, you're basically worshiping them. UFOs, you go out there every night.
They need to feed on.
In the woods looking for them, right? You constantly want to see them and be with them and be around them. You're giving them your energy. You're feeding them your energy. So you could be something. You could be onto something there with this.
And also,
stuff. A lot of sense.
I think, and with Tex saying, I agree with a lot of what Tex says, and what you just mentioned, Anthony. If you're, hey, listen, we in Tex talk about this all the time. You just said the key word, worship. If you're out there, and let's say we're talking about you're in an area that's got malevolent spirits in there or bad vibes, and you're back to the same, let's say, research area time and again, and they know that you're looking for Bigfoot or cryptids. And you probably come across an actual flesh and blood creature out there, right? But it's far and few between, and then these things prey on your energy, as you said, right? So I'm getting more and more into this energy vibe, right? I mean, I think we expound and take in more energy than we realize, and these things out there know it, and they prey on your mind, right? And they infiltrate you. I do believe that. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think everything out there is supernatural or a part of a demon, because I do believe that most cryptids are flesh and blood with a supernatural abilities. I mean, they have that innate ability to pixelate, disappear, cloak, walk, their footprints just disappear. That's an innate ability, right? Not necessarily an evil one, but there are those things out there. They want to trick you, the tricksters, right? And they want to pull at you. They want to pull you in for something that meets their agenda that they know of, but you just don't know about it yet.
That's right.
And I think I don't know. It's just, it's like I've said this before. I think there's the three sightings that I've had, I fully believe were physical creatures. One of the nighttime sightings, I think, probably was too. But all the other stuff, even getting pebbles thrown at me, you can write that off very, very simply as paranormal. I tend to think that getting pebbles thrown at me for a couple of hours was a physical creature. I don't think a ghost threw a golf ball sized rock and hit the top of my truck. I don't think, there's just, but there's other things that's happened out there that, I've been sitting, me and Randy were down there waiting on Jason to show up. We got down there a night early, and we're sitting at the campfire, and I said, Randy, did you see that? And what I saw was a dark entity walk up to the edge of the firelight on the other side of the fire, out of the woods, and just fade right back into the dark. Okay, it was muddy as shit back there. There wasn't a footprint to be found. Okay, the next night, I thought I'm parked. I'm down at the campfire, and they're parked, I guess about 20 yards away, up on the hill at the turnaround. And I've got my truck backed in, and I can see their cars up there. And I see two figures up there which I thought were them getting out to take a leak or whatever. Well, then I start hearing something come up through the trees on this side of my truck, and something and the trees coming towards me on this side of the truck. I mean, oh man, they're messing with me right now. But the problem is I never saw any dome lights come on. They were sleeping in their cars. And so I'm looking around. I go, well, this was weird. I'm going to go stoke up the fire a little bit and kind of sit and see what happens. So I'm out messing around and stuff. Well, Jason gets up and he sees my headlight bobbing up and down and all that kind of stuff. So he walks down to camp. And I said, hey, did you get out to take a leak? Did y'all get out to take a leak? He goes, no, that's the first time I've been up, and he goes, but I had the weirdest dream and I never remember my dreams. I said, what it was? He goes, there was 3 entities that looked like they were made out of like lava or fire coming out of the hayfield. And I said, that is weird. And Randy had been up all day and all night, so we was letting him sleep. He finally got up and he came down, and we both asked him, he said, did you get out and take a leak last night? He goes, no, this is the first time I've been up. He goes, but I kind of woke up about 1:30 in the morning. I thought I saw Jason walk by my car, and all this happened at 1:30 in the morning.
I'm getting the flashback of that, Anthony, that man in the black hat thing that I told you about, that dream, that nightmare that I told you I had and my neighbor had. That sounded so familiar like that.
So Ron and I went on a paranormal hunt.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you like that. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, bro.
And crazy crazy things that happened to you with this story happened to us. So I know exactly what you're talking about, dude.
It's weird because you hear from so many different people almost the same experiences verbatim, and it's like, it doesn't matter if it takes place in a haunted house. It doesn't matter if it takes place in the woods. If you break them down and take the location out of it, they sound almost identical.
Yep.
And that's what's got me worried, because I got to tell you guys, and I've said this 1,000 times, I beat this dead horse almost every show, that I'm not saying these people aren't having these experiences with these creatures, or that's not a possibility. I'm saying I'm worried that it's not. It's a legitimate concern. I've got friends that I respect the hell out of that claim to communicate with these things. And it scares the living daylights out of me, because what if it's not? What if it's not?
Can I ask you something? When you go on a Bigfoot hunt and you're snapping pictures, anytime you snapping pictures in a Bigfoot investigation, do you ever get pictures with a ton of orbs in the picture?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah,
okay.
there's been quite a few orbs. In fact, I thought I saw a UFO one night, but it turned out to be something. I don't know what the hell it was, because
the point I'm making here is that happens with UFOs also. It happens with paranormal, and it happens with Bigfoot. You could be onto something with demonic spiritual going into that realm. You could really be onto something, because when you really start to think about everything that coincides with all 3 communities, the orbs come into play, the red eyes come into play, telepathic stuff comes into play. I mean, that's all demonic stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a theory that we're playing with, guys, and it's a scary one. It really is that there's something. Okay, because I think we can all agree that maybe our government isn't smart enough to pull off these huge cover-ups. Okay,
no, they're not.
But what if they're just the puppets? What if this whole phenomenon, all these phenomena that we deal with, and everything out there that's contacting us, and we're running into, what if there's something big? I call it the cabin in the woods theory. Right. What if there's something bigger at play here, pulling the strings behind the scene? And that leads right into the demonic thing, the spiritual thing. And I've had, D, unfortunately, when he started, when he was out there researching real heavy, he was having some very dark stuff going on at home. Sleep paralysis, demons crawling up the bed, shadow people, the whole 9 yards.
All of that you're talking about.
And I'm wondering if it's something that attached itself to him while he was out there.
Very
You know,
possible. And you brought it home with
because
him? Very
he talks about seeing a large female Sasquatch step out in on the trail, you know, a little ways from him, and she had self-illuminating red glowing eyes. To me, that's not a physical creature.
That's the thing that always gets me is everybody's always saying these red glowing eyes.
red eyes. Yeah.
Like, and when you hear shadow people, when you see a lot of the Bigfoots, they look like these big shadows walking through the woods, but it's these eyes all the time. Like, besides rats, that's some rats that you can see with red eyes.
Yeah,
that's just red. What has glowing eyes? It's like demonic.
Right.
Yeah,
Sounds
and you know, and there are Bigfoot with red eyes and green, yellow, and everything, and some are probably Bigfoot and some are probably not. And you know what's cool about how we've all gotten together on this show? That's kind of the purposes beside why I made up this show, because everything that we all touched on today with the aliens, with UFOs, aliens, cryptids. And again, if you notice at the beginning, when I start the beginning of the show, how it all comes full circle. This is to discuss these rabbit holes, because I tell you what, 5 years ago, I probably thought just one way. Today, you guys, I believe in the circle, and everything is it's all connected. I don't care if you're a ufologist or a zoologist, cryptozoologist. It's all on the same plane. Maybe some are in different dimensions, but they travel from plane to plane and dimension to dimension. Like you've mentioned several times, Anthony. And I think it's all everything. It's not one classification. We're not just talking flesh and blood. We're talking everything. You know, we're talking from the ghost to the paranormal and to things that, you know what, we haven't even discovered yet. And I got to tell you guys something. Tex, that was a great story. I don't think I heard that last story. And Anthony, everybody, you know, we're coming up on 2 hours. I got some things that I got to take care of a little later. I'll be on Space Style Radio tonight, filling in for Duke Sullivan, doing the cryptid report. I got to put something together for that. And everybody subscribe to Identified S4 with Anthony and Ron. Ron also has a show called Cosmic Neighbors. Go subscribe to that. The links are going to be in the description page on my YouTube page. It's also out in the chat if you scroll back and find it. Don't forget, Texas Front Porch. A lot of new faces out there. I think because of YouTube guys, thank you. Subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. Subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. And I'm going to give a shout out to Duke. Everyone's asking about Duke out there. Duke Sullivan, World Bigfoot Radio. Subscribe to him. What the hell? I'm working for him tonight. So, and I'm giving him props. Go figure. But yeah, great show, guys. We got to do a part 2. I'm fascinated. Man, this is one of the favorite. I tell you what, man, I love this show. I think Tex, I can tell Tex dug it. I know our fans or our audience and the listeners did too. I had a great time. We got a new extra to Tex built, be put together. I'm going to click it. With that being said, for Tex, Anthony, and Ron, BMR, Beyond BMR, until next time, we're out.